Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Passive Tree Podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking about life, Path of Exile 2, and everything in between. Tonight, on episode 7, we are joined by the Thorns Lord and God himself, Cal Torak. Welcome on, and how the heck are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Things are pretty good right now. The YouTube channel is going well. There's a lot of positive feedback from peers like you and from GGG themselves. I don't know. I'm in a good place at the moment.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah, we had some fantastic news yesterday. Big patch coming in next week. Lots of positive changes. Feel like PoE 2 just kind of keeps getting better and better, which is definitely a good feeling. But before we dive into that, I would love to dive into a little bit of Kaltorak lore, something that we do on the podcast, a little bit of a classic question at this point. Let's get right into it. Give me your first introduction into gaming. Do you remember, was it console, PC? Let's hear the scoop.
What do I call you, by the way? What do you want me to? Is it just Blaze? Blaze works. You wanted me to call your name? What do you want to go by? I don't know what you want to be referred to as.
You can call me Blaze, man.
Blaze, cool. I don't know. I'm like from that generation of kids that I was born in 1990. I'm about to turn 35. I grew up with the generation of dads that they were the ones who got first into like Pong and stuff, right? So like my dad was an arcade gamer, and then he had the original Sega, he had the original PlayStation. When I was growing up, I remember him saying his favorite game that he got really into gaming was I think Final Fantasy IV. So I just happened to grow up with a gaming dad. Like my earliest memories are like literally sitting on his lap watching him play video games, from Mario to Shining Force to just so many different game genres. I don't even remember what the first game I could have played was because it's literally my earliest memories. It probably like just from that initial generation of gamer kids. Just grew up with a gamer dad. So I couldn't tell you what the first game I remember playing was, because I've honestly it's honestly just been from birth. Like there wasn't like my first game when I was 8, right? Like it was. I was watching him play games before I could hold a controller. So.
That's super cool. Yeah, I feel like the more people I talk to about their sort of introduction into gaming, the more I realize how many cool parents out there were playing games with their kids at such a young age. I wasn't one of those kids. I was sort of handed a console and said, keep yourself busy while I go upstairs and do whatever. So it's super cool to hear that like more and more parents like from our generation were like responsible for like getting us into video games, which is super cool.
No, it wasn't like here, use this console to get away. It was my dad wanted to play the console more than me at it was more me watching him from a young age. Like he was as much a gamer as I was, so, and still is. He's plays games still like in retirement, like all day, every day. I think he's replaying Fallout 4 right now, so he is as big a gamer as I am.
That's excellent. So, how was it sort of going from learning about video games from your father's sort of standpoint to actually getting to game with your dad when you became old enough? Like, did you guys bond over certain video games? How was that experience?
So my dad actually had a gaming laptop. That's how I got introduced to games like Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo from a super young age. And there was a very specific game. It's called Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and Heroes of Might and Magic 3. It's a like turn-based. It's almost like a strategy game. It's very much a turn-based strategy game, and in that game, it had a mode called Hot Seat. And since it's turn-based, what you would do is one person would take their turn, and then they hit end turn, and then it would go to that next player's perspective, and you'd pass the laptop over to them. And I think that was like the very first like real memory I have of because like that, it was a strategy game that could last hours, and like either me and him or me, him and my cousin would like have this laptop with the Hot Seat Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and it'd be like he'd take his turn, and like we'd be in battles versus each other, of course. So we're trying to take each other out. So we wouldn't be able to look at each other's screens and stuff. But it was definitely one of the first cooperative moments I can remember. There's a lot of co-op games, of course, from those times. But that's the first one I remember of it just being like a real, like, not just us taking turns, but actually being against each other or playing together.
That's super cool. Yeah, I had quite a few experiences like that with my stepdad, actually. He was kind of the one who got me into gaming, but not at a super young age. And then as I got older, we sort of started getting into more multiplayer split screen stuff. We played a lot of Halo together. And just, yeah, he was the one who got me into like Diablo back in the day. And we would kind of take turns. Like he'd get an hour on the computer and then I'd get an hour on the computer. And then over time, I slowly was like, can I extend my hour to like 2 hours and 3 hours? And then now I'm addicted. So that's where we're at right now. Yeah. So any other game? I know this is a really hard question. Any other games that sort of really stand out to you as like monumental titles, something that really shaped you as a gamer when you were a kid or an adult?
Yeah, like I'm really big into storytelling. I've taken writing classes throughout my life. I love storytelling. I write in my free time. Um, Looking forward to introducing storytelling into the game development side soon. Looking to introduce it as often as I can into like my videos and stuff. And like I've always loved good storytelling games. I feel like this is just what everyone goes to, but to me, Final Fantasy VII was like the first game that was like, holy crap! Like games aren't just these little mechanic driven games where you're like trying to solve a puzzle or something. Like there's a story that'll like make you cry and like feel things, and it's just like, oh, like even like if you look at the old Final Fantasy VII, those graphics aren't great, but like that really sucks you in. So I feel like Final Fantasy VII is like from a young age was just like the first one that really brought me into like I mean I yeah, like I feel like that game has just shaped how I approach storytelling and like just got me into like just wanting to create immense worlds. And yeah, I don't know, that's just such a good game. Another one I guess for more recent with like later in life would have been Mass Effect. I think the original Mass Effect was just another uh just an insanely great world building from from those games. So just to get away from Final Fantasy VII, because I know everyone says Final Fantasy VII, but another one would be Mass Effect, I guess. Like those two, I still think about a lot to this day.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. So, there was a period in time where games were not about story at all. Going back to arcade days and stuff like that, where the point was to just basically play as much as possible, extract as many quarters from you as possible. But there was this sort of like interesting shift in sort of game design and development, where like the narrative became such a primary focus. For me, the game that really stood out and showcased how powerful narrative can be while also keeping you immersed was Half-Life. I remember playing that game when I was a kid and how there's no cutscenes, so you're playing out the entire story first person as Gordon Freeman and really experiencing that like crazy catastrophic accident in the following story and uncovering sort of how it all unfolds. And that was like one for me that I always go back to, is like, wow, that game just really shaped me as a kid and got me into Counter-Strike. It got me into so many other games and got me into Steam as well. So absolutely in a fantastic game. So moving
Yeah.
onwards to game. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You just got an instant invite to my core friend group by saying that. Like they all love Half Life so much. It is games like that when you look at back at that time, games like Half-Life, StarCraft, like how StarCraft introduced some of the most incredible cinematic storytelling and then just like mission to mission. Like there's so much story in that game for like there's like really like if you like to take all the story from StarCraft, it's only like from the original game, right? It's only like 30 to 60 actual minutes of like story. It's mostly gameplay from like the 20-hour adventure, right? But somehow in that 1 hour of storytelling, they give you so much. And that's what's impressive about those older games. Like you said, Half-Life didn't have cinematics. It did all of its world building through that very minimalistic engine. Like it's not a minimalistic engine, but like through like in-game mechanics and stuff. And that's like why those games are so revolutionary. When you put yourself in like a limited box, you have to push your like if you want to get that story in, it's got to be crisp and perfect, like those games executed on. And yeah, Half-Life's awesome, man.
Absolutely. It almost feels like the less amount of tools that these developers had from those previous times, the more creatively they had to sort of solve these solutions. And so I think Half-Life is a great example of that. And as you mentioned, StarCraft as well. I mean, amazing game. The story's fantastic, but you're absolutely right. There's like these limited amount of tools. So they really had to push themselves in creative ways to solve those issues or solve those problems that they were trying to go for. So Hell yeah, man. And then Half-Life 2 obviously like just elevated that
Oh
game on a
yeah.
whole new level and did sort of the same thing as well. So, yeah, I'm sure we could just sit here and talk for hours about what type of games we love to play. But I would love to
Exactly.
ask you sort of as we sort of move forward throughout your gaming career and stuff like that. How did you basically find your balance? You're now not a child playing video games on your dad's lap anymore. I'm assuming you have a lot of like responsibilities, as most of us do as adults. How do you find balance between gaming, work, life, and all that kind of stuff?
I don't. I don't. I saw this question and I laughed. I don't have a life, man. I don't have time for a life. Like my game development job is literally like a 60-hour work week, and then this PoE 2 stuff has really like taken over my life right now. Um, it's just so enjoyable, and I'm getting to meet and interact with so many cool new people, as you're getting to do as well now. Um, but no, I don't balance it, man. I'm really bad about it. I game too much. There's no simple answer there. It's like sometimes you just gotta make sacrifices. Obviously, I wish I could game more, but right now I'm just operating on too little sleep.
Fair enough. Yeah, I always find that particular question interesting because, as we get older, things kind of pop up, but depending on the level of responsibility you have, it seems like you're able to sort of just manufacture your life in certain ways that work for you. And so, as long as you think that like the way that you're living is working for you and you have the balance set straight for yourself in terms of your game development, or in terms of PoE 2 and your love and life, then there's no issues, no harm, no foul, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like for me, like because I work in game development, like one of my biggest gripes, and I'm sure we will talk about it later, but about game developers is game developers that clearly don't play the games they're making. They're just chasing money, chasing the genre that's popular at the time and stuff. To me, it's important that whatever game I'm making, or like I have to like be playing the other games in its genre. I have to be playing the game I'm making often like so like for me just as like a part of my career, I have to be playing games. It's not just about the enjoyment from it. Like to make good games, you have to play good games. You have to look at what they're doing differently. You have to innovate off of their innovation. It's just required for me. And then yeah, now PoE 2 has become its own second job. So like it's an enjoyable second job. Like I'm having so much fun doing it. So it's just like, do I game a little too much right now? Yes, probably could tone it back a bit, but I think part of it is required for at least my career. Like there's no world where I'm not like part of my like hours per week is gaming, do like play testing the game, so that's like required weekly gaming. And but like even then outside of gaming, I feel like if I'm not gaming at least 10 hours a week, like just trying out other games, I'm limiting myself as a creative, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
I 100% agree. I think that, I think the way that you're approaching it actually applies to pretty much every sort of field that you can get into. For instance, like the first sort of reference that came to mind was being a chef. So if you're being a chef and you're not going out and trying different restaurants, trying different foods out,
Good.
you're not going to be as educated in terms of your research for what your own craft is. So I think by you gaming, you're absorbing that sort of information that you can apply to other projects and your own work as well. So I think that that is a wonderful thing to do, and I do that for my own work as well. I'm an artist, so when I'm not making my own art, I'm definitely talking to people. I'm looking at different art. I'm checking out galleries and stuff like that. So you have to be
What kind of
like
art do you do?
I do murals, and I started off as a graffiti artist, and I still do that type of stuff as well. I'll share
Cool.
myself with you later on if you're
Yeah, please
curious.
do.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's very important to be in touch with whatever medium or field you're in, because if not, you're going to create stuff that's not in touch, which is not good.
Agreed. Agreed. I think it's super important. Like, there's just so many times, like when you get super deep into a game, it's like, yeah, I could rant about it forever. There's like, it's what I'm talking about when it's clear a dev doesn't play the game, and yeah, it doesn't ever feel good. It feels like you wasted your time when you played that game. When you get to that point, it's like I invested all of this just to have played it more than you already, and it's clear that don't care about it as much as we do. It's a sad feeling.
Totally. Yeah, I think that we sort of find ourselves in this like game development ecosystem where these sort of creative smaller studio indie devs are actually so much more like emotionally and physically invested in their product and whatever they're making, and they're playing it and they're checking out different games that are similar to it. But when you get up into like, the bigger corporations or big companies, there are just these like cogs in the machine essentially that are making this product to have it on their resume. They don't actually necessarily care about it that much, and so yeah, I feel like it's kind of sad, right? Like the passion that a lot of these older companies had for developing games has sort of fallen short to the corporate mentality, the greed mentality. How many games can we sell, and how many microtransactions can we get? So yeah, it's a weird time for game development for sure.
I could rant about it for an hour. It's like a lot of these big companies, they don't even like hire developers anymore. It's all contract work. They'll hire you for 6 months to work on like the next Call of Duty game, and then when that Call of Duty game's finished, you're gone. You're not an employee at this company, right? Like a lot of it is like contract work over churn, like uh, it's very greedy when it gets to it, and like you can feel like I'm not saying all these companies that are you feel this vibe from are doing this, but some are, and it's a you can feel it in the games. You feel it in the games. It's like you can't. You have to have the soul as a part of the game. Like the player can feel it if they're not putting the time into it. And if you've only like had 6 months to work with this engine, how can you truly understand it to make it come to life? So it's weird.
Totally. I feel like we're on the brink of sort of like this game development revolution where we're seeing sort of the
I think so.
inflation, absolutely, of the inflation of the giant like giga corporation developed video games. And they've gotten so expensive to make. So there's so much of an investment and they need to get so much of a return back for them to be profitable. And now we're seeing the rise of these beautiful indie games that are just taking the world by storm. The Balatros, the Stardew Valleys, all these different types of games that have been, made by a single person or a handful of people. Very minimal investment. Another one that I just played was Schedule One. Super fun game. Love that game. And yeah, so it's kind of like going full circle, right? Where we started off with people, small teams developing games, grew into this massive, corporate sort of style of things, and now it's sort of regressing back into the rise of the indie dev and the small developer, which is super cool to see. So
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
optimistic about the game development future.
same. I mean, like I think companies like GGG and the people that made Baldur's Gate was Alliance. Who made Baldur's Gate? Um, Baldur's
BioWare
Gate.
or I can't remember.
Forget the name of the indie studio that had made them, but like these are companies that have started off small years ago, right? Like GGG started off as a smaller company, it does have like partners now, but like they've still maintained their core identity, and I think that's like the dream path that a lot of studios have is like you start small, and you can keep your identity. And I think when you look back on the Blizzard era of like how they started small and they sold to Activision, and it's like with the fallout from all of that, like it's like for me, like I refuse to, like I'm not taking any investors for my company. Um,
Hmm.
at most, we'll do like a Kickstarter maybe or something, but like I don't ever want to, like I don't want to say never do that, but like it will never be like a full buyout thing unless I'm like just completely just done, right? Like it just leads to such a gross environment that like, and if it was a buyout thing, I'd be selling to someone within the company. Like just like when you look at the fallout from like literally the history of Activision Blizzard is just like it's what GGG should have been, or like Blizzard should have turned into GGG, right? But they instead sold out and became they're Microsoft now, right? They're just Microsoft now. So Blizzard, I don't even recognize them as the same company.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, I was
I hope
talking.
companies avoid that.
100%. I know it's tough, right? Because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. There's so many people leaving, and then with Blizzard, I think specifically, I find Blizzard so fascinating. I feel like you and I probably share a shared history with Blizzard games, from what I understand about your gaming history. And so I talked about this on a previous episode, but there's a great book called "Play Nice" by Jason Schreier, who sort of outlines the entire Blizzard history, essentially from its inception to the golden era to its various acquisitions and stuff like that. So if I would recommend to you to read that if you haven't read
I
it
have not read
already.
it.
You would
I'm very
love
well
that book.
Jason Schreier, but I have not read
Mhm.
that book.
No worries.
I
Yeah,
will
I
read
would
it.
highly recommend it. It's fantastic. I've dusted it off in a couple days. I couldn't put it down because it really gave you a lot of answers as to what exactly went wrong with Blizzard, and it was quite a few things actually. So
Yes, of
there's a
course.
book recommendation for you.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, I used to do like I got involved with like StarCraft. Like my first dip into content creation, to steal one of the questions on your notepad, was with
Amazing
StarCraft.
segue.
I was super deep into StarCraft. Like I grew up playing StarCraft, and and in Brood War, like they had this like mode called Icy Cup. It was like a ladder that was like had more organized play on it. I got really into that right before StarCraft 2 came out, and at one point I just started making like StarCraft commentary videos and stuff. Eventually swapped to Heroes of the Storm, and then started making Heroes of the Storm commentary videos. Started traveling, doing dream hacks and MLGs and stuff like that. Um, and like it was shocking to me when, like, whenever I finally got to like go to BlizzCons and go to these Blizzard events and stuff, when I was finally meeting all of these employees that worked at the company, they would be excited to meet me. And then when you start to like get close to these people and stuff, and you like start realizing like you're only making $35,000 a year, and you're living with 6 other Blizzard employees in a tiny ass house because you can't afford to live here in the company that's making more money than any other company, huh? And it's just like you start hearing all these gross rumors, and I don't want to get into all that, but it's just like it was very eye opening once like when you look at it from the outside in, it was like Blizzard was the dream company, right? Like I think everyone who was a gamer, if you could have been like, if you were work for one company in the world, what would it be? It'd be Blizzard, right? Like at that era, right? Blizzard was the golden company, and it was just like very shocking. They're like, and none of them were like negative about it. It was very much like a brainwashed. Like Blizzard had convinced all of their employees that they wanted to be there, and they were sacrificing to make something good. And yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It was bad.
Yeah, that's precisely it. They had this level of clout, especially after they sort of released Warcraft 2 and then their next title, which was StarCraft. And so after those two games came out, and I guess Diablo 1 was around very much the same time, those three games gave them so much industry clout because they were just the best-selling game of each particular year. They were bangers that their employees would essentially, as you said, take basically a pay cut or a sacrifice in terms of a lot of different things to be able to have that sort of experience to work at Blizzard. And they kind of held that
Yes.
over, from what I understand, they held that over their employees' heads. Were like, oh, you're not getting paid as much as the other people who were, if you're working at other studios, but you're working at Blizzard, so you got to remember that. And that's pretty
Dude,
dicey.
exactly. It's gross, is what it is. Like the way you just phrased it is exactly how they would phrase it, and it's gross. Like you're working at Blizzard. Like this is good for your resume.
Suck it up.
Shut up and
Yeah.
deal with it. Like it's really gross.
Yeah.
And that's like the vibe I immediately got when I started meeting with all my Blizzard employee friends. It was just like, wow, this is like, and this was before all of the worst stuff that got revealed. Like this was like just my initial reaction to like, oh, they aren't actually this it was like, oh, I don't want to actually work there. Like they don't treat their employees well, and then you find out they're actually just. Now everything's probably getting slightly better now. I know that company's probably filled with a bunch of people who are working their hardest, but I don't even identify it as the same company. Like there's no game that they can release right now that I'll think like in the same even category as an old Blizzard game. It's just a complete disconnect. There's like
100%.
there's no employee there who's like a veteran, right? Like they have, like you talked about earlier, that companies have so much much churn with their employees. Like who's still like the GOAT there outside of like 2 to 3 employees on the WoW team,
Yeah, I feel like the only person that's there that has any sort of clout anymore is Chris Metzen, and I think he got brought back to either work on Diablo or some sort of Warcraft stuff, but I could be wrong. That could have
Just is
already ended.
writing now, I think. But
Yes.
the only person
Yeah.
I can think of is Ion. Eon. I always say his name wrong. He's like the game director on WoW for like the last several years or something. He was like the raid designer from like way back when, so he's been there forever. But he's not, he wasn't like one of the like OGs from like the StarCraft 1 days. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man, like Blizzard, I'm gonna send you this book. I kind of want to just get it for you as a gift now because I know you're gonna love it based on how passionate you are about this topic. But let's move on here. I know
yeah,
we could rant about Blizzard for ages, and Lord knows I have. So I want to talk to you a little bit about game design. I know we've been sort of alluring to the fact that you are a game designer. Can you give me a little bit of backstory about what sort of, when did you start doing it? What sort of got you inspired to start doing it? And what have you been working on?
Well, I feel like a lot of people have always been like, it'd be cool to be a game designer. Like anyone who's played a video game has probably at least once or twice in their life thought like, if I had the time and the money and the effort or whatever to do it, they would. Um, I had done content creation from 2010 to 2017, and I retired from it for a lot of reasons. And I got into web design, and I did that for a while. And then during COVID, I got laid off. Uh, a lot of things happened during COVID, called a midlife crisis, and coming out of it,
They
you
sure
know,
did.
I think everyone had a midlife crisis during COVID, but coming after getting laid off, it was like, okay, I miss being in the gaming industry, but I don't want to do content creation again, as funny as that sounds. I want to make a game. So I reached out to all of my friends, and I was like, hey, I want to make a game. I want to start my own studio. Who's in? And like 7 or 8 of them got back. We all started messing around with a game idea, and within like a week, all but a few of us quit, and because it was actually just a lot of work. It wasn't as fun as you would think it would be, because it's you're making something insanely complex and difficult. And we started doing these things called game jams. They're these little events where you have like a limited amount of time to put a game concept together. If you're interested in getting into game development, just look up game jams. There's like thousands going on every year that you can sign up for. They're really the best gateway to getting into this. But we did a couple of those, and then our team eventually was down to just me and one other guy. And we own the company together. Our original plan after getting done with game jams was we were going to spend 6 weeks remaking a StarCraft custom game. It's a StarCraft custom game called Nexus Wars, and if you've played the Warcraft version, it's called Castle Wars in Warcraft 2.
Very
So we
familiar with
combined the
Nexus
name.
Wars. Excellent.
We combined the two of them. It's called Castle Warriors. So Castle Wars, Nexus War. You see it. And if you actually go play it, you'll feel a lot of those minion types from Nexus Wars specifically in the game. But we were supposed to remake it in 6 weeks and just like never actually publish it. But like within a couple weeks of making it, we were like in love with the game, and we just could not put it down. So we're like, okay, not 6 weeks, 6 months. And then 6 months turned into a year, and then a year turned into our first official Steam release in early access, and then now we're still 3 years into it being in early access. And yeah, that's how we got started there. We got burnt. So there's a lot to talk about with Castle Warriors, but eventually we did we wanted to fix the lag problem we ran into because we were having too many units on screen, and we did a full code rebuild. And when we finished the whole code rebuild, it fixed some problems, but it made so many more problems that we were so burnt out after this year-long rebuild, we couldn't work on it anymore. It was supposed to be a game we spent 6 weeks on, and now we're 3 years deep, and we were just exhausted. So we spent 2 weeks making a horror game, and we learned more in that 2 weeks than we had learned in the last year of Castle Warriors, just because we had been banging our head against the wall for so long. So that's when Card Quest was born, and we said, okay, we're going to spend 6 weeks on Card Quest, and now we're 6 months into Card Quest. It's coming out soon, hopefully, but all of these games were never supposed to be it's not that we're giving it, that we don't want them to be successful, but they were always set out as learning tools for us. and I have not ever set out to make my dream game yet. I don't even know what my dream game looks like, but every game that we've made, with Card Quest coming out, it all started out with just me trying to become a good game developer. Um, so it's hard to like say how it all got to this point because there's like so many different turns along the way. But every project is not like we want it to be the best possible project that it can be with the skill set we have, but we're super limited. We have no money. Um, like we don't have experience in the industry. We're having to learn the engine. We're having to learn the economics of being a game developer, and it's a lot to do and stuff. So, um, I don't even remember what you said. When I talk about game development, I just rant. I'm sorry.
No, you're on topic. I think your whole sort of like origin story, if we can call it that, reminds me very much so of Eric Baroni, who's the the creator of Stardew Valley. So he's actually one of my like personal like heroes. I know that sounds really cheesy and
I love
a bit.
Stardew. No, that's not cheesy.
Okay. I've watched
Normalize glazing your friends, man, or people you look up to. Like, don't ever feel bad about that. If they've inspired you, don't feel ashamed to be like, hey, man, that guy meant something to me.
100%. I mean, despite me myself thinking it's a little bit corny, I will openly admit that Eric Baroni is one of my personal heroes. Eric, if you're out there, you're the best. Please come on the podcast. But yeah, what I was saying was that his sort of story is very similar in yours in a sense because he started just wanting to make a game to essentially only educate himself, make himself a better programmer, a better artist, a better designer. And then he said, I'm going to make a game in, I believe he also said 6 months and see how it turns out. But after that 6 months, he said, I learned so much from that 6 month development time that I have to go back now and just redo everything and start adding more stuff. And then 4 years later, he just constantly continued doing that, improving, getting better and better and adding more and more. And then Stardew Valley was born, Now he's a multimillionaire and he's touched people's lives in a really special way.
That hits to my core because that's exactly what happened with Castle Warriors. It's just like every time we hit something, it's just like you learn so much during that process that if you could go back to the beginning, you would do it very differently, right? And that's what happened with us with Castle Warriors. Like I freaking love that game. I think we haven't abandoned it. We've just taken a pause from it. I think it has the potential. Like you've played Nexus Wars, like the potential of that genre, especially like in a free-to-play multiplayer battle type system. Like that's so much fun, right? Like especially the way we executed it, where we didn't have like how have you ever played Vampire Survivors?
I haven't, ashamedly so, but I've heard of it. I know it's pretty fucking sick.
Have you played those roguelike games where you level up and then you get a pop-up and you have a choice between like 3 options?
Yeah.
Like every level up. So it's like Nexus Wars, but you don't build anything. As you're killing units, you get experience, you level up, and then you get to choose a new unit. So you have like you'll get 3 options of like all the units in the game. So like every game, you're not building the exact same army. There's no like controlling over it. So like a game like that can be really freaking fun. It's just I think we were not skilled enough to make it when we started out, and we're too picky. Like it's hard when you're your own worst critic, when you have a vision in your head of the game you're trying to make and you don't have the technical skill or the money, because right now the biggest thing that's preventing Castle Warriors release is money. It's like we could release it right now and just be like, yeah, we did the best we could, but we're too damn stubborn for that. We want it to be what we want it to be,
Of course, and I understand that like you've been working on this for so long, you care about it, you want it to be the best possible thing. And from as a creative myself, I can't imagine working on a single painting for 4 years. As Eric Baroni said, when he got to the 4-year mark in Stardew Valley, he was a completely different person. His interests had changed, his type of music he was listening to had changed, what he was watching changed. So you evolve as a person so much in that length of time. And so going back and looking at something that you had worked on and started on from 4 years ago, I can't even imagine, dude. I would be like, I'm redoing the whole thing. Scrap it. Let's start again, So I really hope that, Castle Warriors can, come to fruition. One other thing I'd like to add about that is, yeah, of course, is that there is clearly a market for, custom games turned standalone. We have, Dota as a prime example of that. One particular type of custom game that I loved to play in StarCraft days was tower defense. So there were so many various versions of tower defense that you could play, and now there's, look at the various types of standalone tower defense games that exist, right? Like, there's tons of them. So of course there's definitely a market for, I think, Nexus Wars as well. I'm not entirely sure if there's any titles that even sort of capture that, so I think you guys are definitely onto something.
So when we released it in early access, it had a 94% review. Like anyone who was playing it, like that was like interested in that genre, it had raving reviews. If you go look at it now, it's down to like I think a 70, maybe even the 60s now because we haven't updated it in over a year. But like for what it was, despite how buggy it was and how laggy it was, like the people that played it that were the fans of Nexus Wars, they saw its potential. And the problem with that I have with it is because it was the game was, we were supposed to be remaking a custom game, like you said, every 6 weeks. Like we were just supposed to go from custom game, it was supposed to be Nexus Wars, and we move on to Desert Strike, and then move on to another one, another one, another one. But we were doing them as single player games because making games alone is hard enough. Making multiplayer games with networking and all that stuff when you are new to it was a hard no. So we were like Castle Warriors was unfortunately its core base was not even made with multiplayer in mind. So now it's like we want to get money so we can make it a multiplayer game while still having the single player elements everyone liked. That's the dream. So
for sure, yeah, I believe in you guys. I can hear from how you're talking about this that you're clearly very passionate about this particular project, and so I would love to see that come to fruition. I hope you guys can lock in whatever you need to do to make that happen, man.
Hopefully, Card Quest is that gateway. I feel like you mentioned what was the 3D sim you played? I can forget the name of it always. The drug one.
Schedule 1.
Schedule 1. So like I've been playing Schedule 1 and we've taken some mechanics from that to introduce into Card Quest, and then Card Quest got inspired by a game called TCG Sim, where you're like own a trading card shop. And the most fun part of that game was opening card packs. I didn't like the rest of the game. I normally don't like 3D Sims, but it was fun to open card packs. So it was just like, oh, we just finished this horror game. Let's remake that favorite part of that game into a 6-week project where you're just opening card packs. And now it's turned into an entire 3D simulator. And I love the game, but my biggest worry right now is the AI art. You're an artist, right? I know you're very well aware that AI art has a very negative connotation right now. I do not want to be using AI art. I would love to release the game, make some money, and then hire like 50 to 100 community artists to redraw all the AI art, right? Like, these are the things that I would love to be doing with my games. But it's just like all of them are just every problem I have with my games right now is usually limited by having no money, and I'm too stubborn to like. Maybe we need to do Kickstarters or something, but I'm just too stubborn to want to like. I'm not too stubborn. Maybe that's not the right word, but I don't want to like reach out to a Tencent and these publishers and stuff. Like I'm not interested in doing that. So it's just kind of like. Do we release this card game with the 3D? The AI we've got is like we've done the best we can to make it look good, but it's AI slop. Like I don't want that in the game. Like it's these are all the hurdles I struggle with right now.
Absolutely. I encourage you to sort of summon that inspiration that we were talking about earlier. Think about those early game developers and how they were having to work with inside a tight box and really try and come up with those creative solutions to those problems, working within, I guess, that those tight restrictions is all I can say. I'm not a game dev. I don't know anything else about it, but all I know is that if I'm ever in a situation like that, I would try to, get inspired by maybe previous, as you said, go and play some other stuff that might, give you some ideas about how they particularly solve those issues. That's it. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just it's just solving with them the tools you have. I don't have money. I would not be able to make a card simulator game without AI art, so that's what we had to do. And
for sure, and I think that can definitely, even as you said, be like placeholder. Like it can be something that help you get the game done. Don't let it be a hurdle. Let it be sort of a goal in mind that you can kind of take a look at down the road. But maybe don't let it deter you from making any more progress on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's hard. Yes, that is the best mindset to have. Is
for sure.
You have
man.
to be proud of what you're doing in the moment because you're doing the best you can, and you just got to accept what you got.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right on, man. Well, so we got your your Card Quest project. Talked about Castle Warriors, sort of game development stuff. One follow up question that I had that I sort of thought of while we were talking about this was, as you're the first sort of game developer that I've had a chance to talk to on the podcast, how does that particular career choice job affect your view of other game developer studios? Does it make you sort of more empathetic to the amount of difficulties that are required in making games? Does it make you have higher standards in terms of criticisms? Where do you sort of fit on that line?
I think becoming a game developer has made me way more jaded and angry towards all the bad studios out there that just misuse their it makes me admire companies like GGG even more, right? Like companies
Mm-hmm.
like Larian Studios that made Baldur's Gate 3. I finally
There
remember
we
their
go.
name.
Yeah.
It makes me it has made me appreciate these studios that have stayed true to themselves, and like they treat their community well, their transparency, um, it's just if anything, it's made me like more critical of the companies I don't like, and to the point that like there are so many companies. I wouldn't say so many. This is gonna sound diva-ish, but there's like there's some companies that I refuse to play their games of anymore, from just like purely from a like personal industry perspective. So it has definitely made me more jaded, I guess.
Fair enough. I feel like if I was in that particular position, I mean, I feel like I can definitely relate to that, even not being a game developer. Like, for instance, from my experience, like, I'm not sort of hyper aware of all of these negative things or these positive things that people are doing. I've only been able to figure it out based on my own experience. So I always talk about my relationship with Blizzard as sort of giving myself like emotional baggage when it comes to video game development, because it started off so great, ended off so poorly, and then as you bring up GGG, learning about them and getting involved in the Path of Exile 2 cycle and learning about them as a company has really opened my eyes in terms of like what a really great game developer looks like and how they treat their player base in terms of communication, in terms of cadence of updates and stuff like that. So it really does sort of open your eyes in terms of like what's actually possible and what the sort of like trends are in game development right now. And I feel like yeah, I feel kind of spoiled by like being able to play Path of Exile because they're just such a like. I don't just love the game; I also love the devs as well, which is a great feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I think like when you see the negative reception towards these developers, I think it's just because these players have been so spoiled by them for so long. They have not like seen how the other industry leaders are treating their communities, or like you just like straight up ignoring them and stuff. Like the level of transparency that you see, like the fact that these developers, like I used to do developer interviews with Blizzard. Like I've been flown out to Blizzard HQ. I used to do a podcast called Town Hall Heroes, and we've had Blizzard developers on those developer interviews. A lot of the time, it was sending them a list of pre-defined questions, and it was like it wasn't always like super scripted, but it always felt very like red tapey and like we got to be like on our toes with this. Like we don't want to like ruin. Like it was always like if this goes bad, like we might not be doing these ever again type of vibe. And like GGG does just like yeah, we're gonna do a 30 of them a patch. We're gonna do them randomly throughout the patch. We're like it is a. And then there's like so many companies that don't do this ever. Like at least Blizzard tried, right? But like a majority of companies have no transparency. They don't even communicate. They don't even try. So it's like the level of communication that it's Mark and Jonathan putting their butts on the line too, like the leaders. It's not like they're sending grunts out. It's massive. Like maybe if I don't agree with what they say, that's fine. But the respect they gain just for putting themselves out there as much as they do is 10 out of 10.
I can't agree more with you, my friend. And yeah, they're just a special, special company. So I feel like I'm super lucky right now to be sort of getting into the Path of Exile 2 sphere and really enjoying this game and really enjoying seeing sort of how this like company is just handling everything, the good and the bad. So let's transition now into Path of Exile. Give me a breakdown. When did you get into the game? Did you play a lot of Path of Exile 1? Are you more keen or prone to Path of Exile 2? Where's your stance? Give me the scoop.
I've been playing PoE 1 since its early access, like one of the original like patches. I've been playing since before trading was in the game. So I've been playing it a lot, but I've not been like there were periods of time where I would not play it for 2 to 3 years, where I would just be like when I was super heavily involved in esports, like when you're in esports, right? Like you're having to watch every team that's playing while also actively playing the game. Like you're involved in an entire ecosystem, right? Where like, you don't have that much time for other games during that. So there was plenty of period of times where like I just straight up didn't play Path of Exile 1 for years, but I've been playing it since it's like early access. There was a 2.5 year break, I want to say, between PoE 1 and PoE 2 where I did not play PoE 1. Um, and then there's like maybe one or two other moments where I took about a 1 to 2 year break. But I've played it. I mean, I've got like a few thousand hours played into it, so I've played it plenty.
Okay, cool. That's very, very interesting. So, how was like was there any sort of moment that sort of made you want to get into that early access in Path of Exile? Was it a friend who put you on, or was it something that you had been following initially already, or how did you sort of make the leap into Path of Exile at such an early point in its development?
I was big into. I mean, I was a big Diablo player. I played Diablo 1 a lot. I played Diablo 2 online a lot. Like me and my friends, when we used to get home from high school, we would do bow runs and stuff. Like I was big into Diablo 3. I don't remember if Diablo 3 came out before PoE. I think it did. I'm not sure the timeline there. I don't remember, but like, because it might have been maybe Crip got me into PoE because I was already a Crip fan because he played Diablo 3, or maybe Crip's got me into like, or maybe I had already known of Crip by then, but it might have been a friend. I don't remember how I got into Path of Exile, but I was big into Diablo, and I was just like aware of ARPG games. So like, I might have been aware of it when it was coming out, like just because I was like a part of like that ARPG space, kind of. I don't remember though.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, if it makes sense. Obviously, Diablo 2, basically the inspiration for Path of Exile. So being a Diablo fan, it kind of is a natural transition, and that's why I find it so interesting for me. Whenever I say I never played like Path of Exile 1, I didn't really ever get into it, even though Diablo 2 is my favorite game of all time, dude. Like I love ARPGs. That game like is the crown jewel of like action RPGs for myself. So that's super cool. So you got into it very early on. Give me sort of a breakdown about how you thought about Path of Exile 2 prior to its launch. Were you excited? Were you a little bit sort of on the fence about it? How did you feel?
So I've always had like I don't want to. It's hard to say love-hate relationship with PoE 1, but for me, like a lot of people talk about how PoE 1's campaign is just like this super easy breeze. That was never the case for me. I have always hated campaigns in any ARPG. I just want to be in endgame in an hour. And I never like I know this is gonna sound backwards, but I never took the time to learn PoE 1's campaign. Uh, like, despite how much I've played it, like me going through the campaign was always me digging my heels and complaining the entire time, and just screaming until I got to end game, and then yeah, it's fun now, but never actually like trying to solve that problem, right? Um, so that's why I mostly always get deterred from PoE 1 was like I just was so over the campaign experience. It's just so everywhere. And when PoE 2 was released or teased at that first Exile Con, where we actually got to see all the classes, the dodge roll, like it was just teased. I forget when that was, like 2.5 years ago. Um, I saw that in trailer and I was just like, oh, this is going to be the best game ever. And then I just didn't. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from ARPGs until then. I want to
Hmm.
go into PoE 2 with like I don't want to be burnt out because I just played 2 years of PoE and Diablo 4 and Last Epoch. Like, I didn't touch an ARPG. I think I messed around with some D4 Thorns because all of my friends were playing it, but I avoided all of those other ARPGs like Last Epoch and even PoE 1 purely because I don't know what it was when I saw the game. I was just like, oh, this just looks like I want like all of this. And I was just like, I want to be able to hit it the ground running. I didn't expect me to be playing it this much. I've almost got 2,000 hours played already. Like, I didn't think I'd be enjoying it this much, but I saw it and I was like, oh, instead of like trying to finally master PoE 1, I'm just going to wait for this and I want to master that. And so yeah, it was just literally at that ExileCon trailer where they showed all the classes, the skills. I saw Druid, I saw Cyclone teased in it. Like the graphics looked amazing. Um, And I was just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna play this game for the next 10 years. So I'm gonna wait for that, and I'm gonna just. I didn't think I was gonna be making. I wasn't even remaking content at this point when I thought this. So like, I wasn't even thinking about like a YouTube channel. It was literally just as a player perspective. It was just like, oh, this game's gonna be my forever game. Cool. I'm gonna wait for it to come out then.
That's super cool. Yeah, I think that we sort of did the same thing. Like it sounds like to me the way that I would put it is like an ARPG cleanse. You're like I'm not going to touch
Yes.
any ARPGs for a little bit because I want my experience with Path of Exile 2 to be the most like pure experience ever. And it's kind of like, before you do like an ayahuasca trip, if you're into that or something like that, you like don't drink or do drugs or anything for like a month, and then you go into it, and it's like the most like intense experience of your life. I don't know if that's the inappropriate route.
That is that's very apt reference. That makes sense. No, I went in as like hungry for an ARPG as possible, and I mean that maybe is why I'm enjoying it so much. But yeah, that's what happened.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm also loving it, still playing it. I don't think I have 2,000 hours. I probably have over 1,000 though. And yeah, it's
I'm
just
at
been great.
1,700, but I work from home and I leave it open a lot to like trade, so it's probably not like actually 1,700 active, but
For sure. Yeah, yeah,
Steam's
yeah.
got
You're on the
1,700
game a
log.
lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So you talked about how much you love the game, clearly by the amount of hours you've been playing it and, enjoying it and stuff like that. Give me some of your biggest positives and biggest negatives regarding the game.
Um, Biggest positive for me right now is I think it's the single best campaign experience. Like I know a lot of people are struggling through it. Right now I can get to end game and like I can get to end game in this game faster than PoE 1. I can get to the campaign if I have a build I'm comfortable with, I can get to what is it, like level 60 or whatever in like 7 hours. Like it's so easy for me now. So like the difficulty is not really a thing I'm talking about here. I'm talking about like just the enjoyability from moment to moment. I talked about this on Try's podcast, but I think the bosses are like the single best thing in this game, and that's what makes the campaign so enjoyable for me. I think in all ARPGs, a majority of bosses are not bosses; they're just glorified rares. They have no mechanics. They're not a test for your build. You don't really even test your build until you get to end game, right? But for me, the campaign experience in this game is in its entire own journey. Like right now, I'm thinking about starting a very fun build on my Titan, or for a Titan, and I have the Warbringer, right? And I'm like, I could just change the Warbringer to a Titan, but I won't learn as much as I could if I didn't level the Titan through the campaign, because you get like all of these tests that you can test at level 10 and level 20, like all of these different boss fights. And to me, like no ARPG has like normally in ARPGs, I am a one character Andy. I do one character until I'm bored and then I'm done. Like I cannot I hate alts. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. They're the worst. They're such a waste of time in ARPGs to me. Somehow in PoE 2, right now I have like 8 characters in endgame and I'm about to start my ninth. I'm about to re-level a character I don't have to. And it's because the journey of the campaign is just, for build makers specifically, it is a constant journey. Just, you get to see how these pieces come together, and you have all these major breakpoints that are these milestones. That's like, can I beat, Count? Can I beat Jamin Ra? The campaign to me is just like, it's the single best, and it's not even finished. We only got acts 1 through 3. Like, it's the single best campaign of any ARPG I've been a part of, period. And like it's not even finished yet, and it's gonna get better over time.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I wish I could sort of relive my first playthrough through the campaign. There were so many wow moments. There were so many like holy shit moments while playing through it, like getting on like the dreadnought and like being like on the moving caravan and fighting through that. Like that was crazy. Like there's just so many moments like that. Like when the, Colossus like grabs the dagger out of the giant like pedestal, and like man, it's just a wonderful campaign full of, like as you said, those milestones that are testing your build, but also like just visually, cinematically beautiful zones. They're all so diverse, so unique. The monster diversity is crazy throughout the campaign as well. I was astounded every time I went to a new zone. I was like, this feels different, this looks different. There's no repeat in monsters. The bosses are incredible. Yeah, like it's just blown me away. And I think it's a true statement when you can play through the game as play through the campaign as many times as we have. I've probably played through it like 40 or 50 times now, and I still like enjoying that process. I'm not like,
Yeah,
oh, I need to
that's
like get
weird.
through this to get to end game. I'm like, no, this is fun. Like I enjoy these beats. I enjoy the, particularly through like normal. Maybe cruel kind of feels a little bit like, I'm just doing the same thing all over again and it's easier, but that won't be the case when the game's actually done. So yeah, it's very exciting to see what they put into the game next.
Yeah. And for the second half of that question, the thing I dislike least about PoE 2 right now is I think, um, like I'm not even willing to talk about endgame and crafting just because like those are just so unfinished. I'm not really interested in criticizing them. The biggest complaints I have right now are with a lot of the limitations of skills. I'm not saying all skills should be untied from weapons, but I feel like there needs to be more neutral skills. Skills that can be used across multiple weapon types. Because right now I feel like you are often limited. Like the most limiting factor right now is how skills are assigned. And it's very possible that a skill could perform a lot better with a different weapon. Like like a really bad skill that's performing poorly in the meta right now. If you could use like maybe Molten Blasts with like something differently, like that's not a mace, like a quarterstaff or something. Like maybe now there's a sudden viability with Molten Blast. Like there's so many skill. Like I'm not saying all skills have to be untied from it. Maybe that it needs to be locked to it like this way, but that's the biggest question mark I have. It's like where I'm like, yeah, there's just so many moments where I'm like, I can't do this build this way because of X, and it's usually tied to the skills and the weapons.
100%. I feel like there are certain skills that are very much so like that's a mace skill. Like when I'm using Hammer of the Gods, of course. But, who's to say that Rolling Slam or Bone Shatter can't be used with a quarterstaff? You're essentially just doing the same motion but with a different weapon. Do you think that in the future when all weapon types are accessible that they may open up the gates in terms of like the flexibility of weapons for these different skills, or do you think that they're going to really buckle down on the restrictiveness of them?
I think that's one of those things that once you do it, you can't turn it back. And the only way they do that is if it's just like it is as bad as like it's worst case scenario. And I don't think it's going to be that. Like this isn't awful. It's a little limiting, and in some ways, like we talked about earlier, right? Limitations led these developers to creating great things. Limitations like I'm doing a new series soon where I'm interviewing build creators, and one of the questions I ask in it is revolving around like, do you find these limitations in PoE 2 to be more restrictive or more enabling creativity wise? And that's what I don't know is like, are these restrictions making me have to think differently in a good way or a bad way? And we won't really be able to answer that until, like you said, all weapons are in the game.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question to ask. And I think that you'll probably get some different answers depending on who you ask about that. But I do think that, conversation going full circle again, when you're working within that sort of limitation, those tight restrictions, it does require or force your mind to start thinking outside the box with as much stuff as you can. Although, like for me personally, I do think that I agree with you. I'm on the side of it does feel a little bit too restrictive. Like for instance, I played through a secondary Smith of Katava with the basic purpose of figuring out if I could run like spears, but because that ascendancy, like sorry, the empowered weapon. I can't remember the exact thing of what it's called, where you like smash the weapon down and you get empowered hits. That only works with melee. So there's a lot of different spear builds that are spear attacks, like explosive spear that deals fire damage, but unfortunately it doesn't apply because you can't like empower it with that particular thing. So I feel like, if they just loosened up a little bit with that type of stuff, where like maybe the empowered hits could just be projectile and attack skills, then it would just allow for a little bit more flexibility. Like I would love to do like some sort of spear build with the Smith of Katava, but it just doesn't really make sense to at this point in time. So I hear you,
Yeah,
man.
that was my like I'm working on a Bone Storm build that I'm not sure I'm actually going to post. The character's like level 86 right now. I'm doing a build from 0.1, and one of the things I was hyped about it was doing it on a Roa in 0.2. It was actually supposed to be my league start, but you can't use spells on a Roa. these limitations. It's like,
Yeah.
do they need to be there? Are they there for a good reason? Why can't spells be used from Roas? Well, then that enables so many more builds to just always want to force Roa in, right? So maybe that limitation needs to be there, or maybe it being open to spells is a good thing. Should it be open to melee skills too? Like, why not? Like, why am I not able to just run up to them and slam them with my sword like I'm a lancer or something? Maybe that's going to be answered later on when they have a different type of mount that enables those things. So it's. I try not to overanalyze these things. You've seen me talk about how I don't know what the internal build looks like. We don't know what toys the devs have seen and what are coming. Like, a lot of our problems might be solved with, like, if there's another Roa that's usable for spells, right? A Roa that's usable for melee attacks. Like, we don't know what's coming that can, like, solve all these problems. So it's
Precisely. Yeah, I always thought that like a simple solution for this would just be support gems. I think that like if there was a support gem that, for instance, allowed you to change the type of attack used on Roas from attack to spells, I think that would be interesting. Or the same thing with like the empowered weapon for the Smith of Katava. Certain little things like that where you could like interject a support gem in there that changes this the skill to sort of fit a different play style or a different build. As you said, though, we have no idea what they have. We don't know if that exists in the game already and they're just like not done perfecting it or whatever. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the early access landscape just leaves like so many question marks that it's just like, GGG, let us both interview you so we can keep asking you guys questions directly, because, there's so many questions I have and then the community has that it's just like, what's coming? And I'm sure they're willing to tease some stuff, but they don't know what we want to know.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bug try to answer some of our or get some of our questions answered when he does his interview with them. That'd be excellent.
I already sent him a Thorns question to ask.
Okay, so Thorns, he brought it up. We got to talk about it. You've gained quite some notoriety from your Thorns videos. They've been performing extremely well. You've been having a blast just showcasing what you can do with Thorns on so many different ascendancies and stuff like that. Give me sort of a breakdown as to what inspired you to get into that particular playstyle. Was it just from the get-go in PoE 2, or were there other games that you played with Thorns with?
So I'd played Thorns in Diablo 4. I normally play like Cyclone, and I played Whirlwind in Diablo 4, and then Diablo 4 had the PvP mode, and I thought Thorns would be funny in it, because I had just gotten a Thorns unique. And if you look at my YouTube channel, my first 2 videos are Thorns PvP videos. So that's just my first experience with Thorns. It's not really my go-to play style, but the same thing happened in PoE 2. I was playing my Infernalist in 0.1, and I got a Thorns unique, and that sent me down the rabbit hole. I made a random video just going over the Thorns uniques and items and stuff that got added, and it got a lot of views. Like, a lot of them. I think it's still my most viewed PoE 1 video, or PoE 2 video, like in terms of like long form content, not shorts. And like, you'd have to be foolish to not chase like that level of viewership, right? Especially if you're having fun doing it. But then I made a couple more Thorns videos. Thorns was kind of really bad in 0.1. I didn't actually make very many Thorns builds. I think I only had actually one that was okay. Most of my builds were actually like reflect builds. And a lot of it was just like, I don't know, like, to me, again, full circle back to when you put limitations on yourself. Build making is not fun if you're doing if you enjoy Lightning Spear, that's fine. But build making Lightning Spear, to me, is not fun. There is no enjoyment in like a build that just from start to finish just poops on everything. And there's like the micromanaging you're doing in the solving of problems is just getting more damage out while making sure you don't get one shot. Like that's not enjoyable to me. When you play these, people call them off meta builds, there are a lot of problems you have to solve. And when I found myself playing these Magma Barrier, Arctic Armor builds, it was very much like in that vein of like, they were all set out in a journey of me wanting to learn as much about the game as possible. Me teaching myself all of these mechanics and stuff. Some of it comes from the fascination from the game development end of it. Like, why are these things in the game? right? Like, why did someone code this in? Like, I want to know why they put the effort into it. There's got to be something they intended, right? So like they want it to be a thing. But yeah, for me right now, Reflect and Thorns builds are good enough that they're fun, but bad enough that they're fun to solve, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
That makes total sense. It's like, yeah, it kind of, it's like the yin and the yang of like enjoyment. And it's sort of like found that perfect balance between like challenging enough as a puzzle to solve and enjoy, but also good enough and strong enough to actually do content and have fun actually playing the game. Because you wouldn't do it if it was like bad and you just were getting shit on the entire time, right? So yeah,
Yep,
that's fascinating, man. It's like kind of that perfect middle ground of like enjoyment in terms of that build crafting, that theory, like that build tinkering stuff that you enjoy, but also like you can actually play the game and progress and do all the fun stuff in the game as well. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. That's really the main thing is like that was just what drew me to like I have a lot of builds from 0.1, right? And I think more than half of them aren't reflect builds. But the reflect builds oftentimes were the most fun to make. Just from the journey. And they also were getting a lot of views. So like the affinity to Thorns isn't necessarily an affinity to Thorns. It's affinity to the process of Thorns, I guess. I don't know. It's weird to describe. Like Thorns isn't as like if you ever played a melee build in any ARPG, you know you're getting hit all the time, right? Like I'm not thinking about Thorns 90% of the time. I'm just getting hit and it's doing its thing, right? Like so it's not like it's this like whole slow play style, you know. It just kind of happens to fit into a lot of builds right now. I think it's really well designed for its bones. I think GGG has set themselves up to make Thorns a very, very popular playstyle, and I'm lucky to have like accidentally slid into this position of like you said. I'm like a lot of people call me the Thorns guy already, and like I don't feel qualified to say that, but it makes sense why people are saying that because I'm really the only one putting this much effort into it. But I feel like if other creators were aware of how much potential Thorns was going to have long term, they would have invested more into it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Thorns falls flat eventually. But I think Thorns is not just going to be a viable playstyle at times. It's going to be a popular one, a very popular one, I think.
For sure. And I think like, as we talked about this sort of yin and yang in terms of enjoyment from a build crafting side while also fun to play has captured quite a large audience because, from playing ARPGs from back in the day, there was always that Thorns modifier, going back to Diablo 2 and stuff like that. And I know that there were builds for Thorns in Diablo 2, you had Paladin with the Thorns aura and stuff like that, but it was never something that people really took that seriously. And we all sort of thought, well, I'm not trying to speak for, the entire player base, but I'm sure a lot of people thought that, Thorns was just sort of this meme, like sort of stuff, like it was kind of like a dead mod, right? But, I think that was one of the really cool things about Path of Exile 2 is that in point 2 they really like bumped it up quite significantly in terms of power, and I really applaud GGG for sort of like being like, oh, you can actually make this viable and make this really strong as well, which is super cool.
Yeah, the fact that they went from 0.1 to 0.2 with such a level up and like attention to it, that's why I'm so stoked on it right now and why I'm willing to like commit so much to guide making and learning about guide making for Thorns right now is because I see it as being like again a popular style long term. If I can cement myself as the Thorns guy, as long as I'm having fun doing it, I'm okay doing that. And yeah, just like the level up and attention it got from 0.1 to 0.2 shows GGG's taking it seriously. I think the success of my videos show that the community likes it. Like my first Thorns video, when I first started making PoE 2 content, I had 7,000 subscribers, and that video has almost 100,000 views now. Like that's not normal. Like especially when you're someone who's made 0 videos for that genre. That was my first PoE 2 video. They weren't watching it because of me. They were watching it because of Thorns. Thorns has like an allure to it, especially in PoE 1 because it hasn't been there for PoE 1 because it hasn't been there. But I think there are a lot of PoE Thorns enjoyers from other ARPGs. D3 had a fun Thorns style with the Crusader. Like you said, the D2 Paladin had Thorns, and then Diablo 4 Thorns was very fun. It was really well made. It was a little too easy. I like GGG's version way better. But the Diablo 4 Thorns was popular, and it was pretty fun. I don't know how it holds up now, but in the early seasons, it did well. So there's definitely a want for it, and it seems like GGG wants it. Like you said, I mean, I'm blown away. I went into like 0.2 not expecting Thorns to get leveled up at all. I had no intention of really like. I was like, maybe if we got one thing, I would like take a look. But it got a very serious level up. The fact that I can clear Arbiter 3 with Thorns, that was not even close to possible last patch. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, the way that Grinding Gear Games is looking at their sort of modifiers for everything is if it's in the game, it needs to have its place and it needs to have viability. I think that that's a great outlook in terms of, itemization, in terms of skill use, in terms of, powerful uniques and build changing uniques. Like if these things are in the game, they need to have some sort of place in there. And I really love how they approached sort of that outlook towards Thorns and Point 2. I think that's just fantastic. And I think moving forward, we'll probably see more of that type of stuff happen because you're absolutely right. There is this sort of like romanticism around Thorns for whatever reason. It has been sort of this reoccurring modifier in so many ARPGs, and not a lot of them have gotten it right. So it's dope to see like GGG kind of taking it seriously and having people like yourself really discover like the power that it can produce.
I think it really is done right. I think this is the best way to do it. The retaliate mechanic they've introduced is super smart, that you have to take Thorns. It's not just taking damage, but taking damage enables you to do your attack skill that will do Thorns damage. Like Thorns is now just Thorns should be looked at like critical strike. You're doing a crit build that enhances your normal build that you can do as crit now instead of attack speed version, or just a flat damage version, or fire damage version. Now there's going to be skills of all types that use Thorns as the damage amplification, because it just, again, like you can't avoid being hit at times. And then there are some builds that intentionally build to be hittable. Like they want to be like brain off, and like Thorns just fits perfectly into a lot of these styles. I don't know. I genuinely think that a lot more people are going to be surprised that they enjoy Thorns. Like it's going to be like righteous fire tier, like the fan base that Pox has. Like it'll be as good as that. It'll have its like its own not rabid fan base, and then like people who aren't even a part of that rabid fan base that still enjoy it. Like it's gonna be that kind of thing, I think.
Absolutely. And I think one of the really cool things, there's a lot of cool things about Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2, but one of my favorite things is sort of as you play through the game, you generate this knowledge, this like wealth of knowledge about how these different systems and things come into play, these different items, these different, notables on the skill tree. And so you can apply that knowledge essentially to every ascendancy that comes out down the road, and then start to include new items in there as well. So it's going to keep you pretty busy as long as you're having fun doing it. I feel like you can really sort of just like dig into this and really like push it to the limits as the game sort of has more content, more weapons, more ascendancies and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. It's really cool. Like no ascendancy supports Thorns directly yet. We don't know if that's ever going to happen. We got more uniques coming. Like it's going to evolve a lot more over time. It's going to like, I don't know. It's going to be cool to see. I think GGG, the bones of this game is really solid. And it's just going to evolve a lot more over time. Like when I think about like flails seem like a perfect addition for Thorns uniques, right? Like, I don't know. This game's got a lot of like long-term potential, especially once GGG like starts loosening the grip on like some of these like restrictions that we talked about earlier. So it's cool, man. And like you said, like I think it's very like the reason I make so many builds is because like so many things that I've learned from like doing these silly meme builds. Like I started my series Will It Thorns. I learned about Recoup from the Chronomancer. I hadn't done a single Recoup build yet, and now I do it in a lot of builds. And then me going to make the Chronomancer or the Chayula Monk Thorns is what taught me this Herald of Blood tech that I use in all of my Thorns builds now. It's just like there's so much to learn, and then it's not even just Thorns builds that like all these other builds I play have something to learn from and stuff. So
100%.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that like you're kind of this is going to sound a little bit blunt, but you're kind of griefing yourself if you're like a one build Andy or a one ascendancy Andy,
Agreed.
like you're not learning how a lot of these other things interact. And so I think what you're doing and what a lot of people do is really smart, where you're trying a bunch of different stuff, and it's sort of amalgamating all of that knowledge and information that you are to really make sure that like your next build you can apply certain things that you learned. It's like the same thing with game design and with art and stuff like that as well. It's like you really have to experiment and you have to explore in order to become really proficient at the things you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of PoE1 players who are frustrated with PoE1 have forgotten is that they're so PoE1 is so easy and brain off to them because they have this knowledge built up over thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of play. That game is not easy. It's not brain off. It's not simple to blast through. It's just you've made it that way through knowledge, and I think that's why you have so many creators like Jorgen, for instance, who is just grinding nonstop on his builds, and Rana Ray, like these guys are still this deep into the season. We're still all churning different builds. Like I've got I got a Bone Storm Pathfinder coming out soon. After that, I'm doing a Titan build that I'm not quite ready to tease yet, but like we're all just trying stuff. And I think if we were to ask all of us why we're doing this, it is ultimately to learn as much as possible for the future, because we all see that this game is going to be, I don't know what we're playing for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. It's going to be a banger. I'm already having so much fun. And yeah, it's like, it's like what's like what you said. I completely agree. Usually with these games, I'll like min max one character, get to like deep end, and then be like, yeah, I'm ready to wait until next season. But with Path of Exile 2, even at this state in early access, there's so many ascendancies that I haven't tried yet that I could just easily look up some like stuff and go for it and be excited about it and enjoy the process too. It just feels like even at this stage in early access, there's a lot to do. And I know some people sort of already have like checked out from this particular season due to some of the issues that happened at the beginning of the league or whatever, but man, like it just feels even unrecognizable right now, based on all the changes that they've done thus far for Dawn of the Hunt specifically.
Yeah, that's what this is what I've expected for the early access myself, is just to be just like chaotic battleground of just changes left and right. Like the initial ones were going to be slop, and then we're going to get more stabilized. But I think 0.3 is going to add a bunch of amazing things, but it's also going to have a bunch of slop in it. And eventually we'll reach a point where that's not going to be the case. But I think I don't know. I've never played a game like I'm playing Path of Exile 2 right now, especially a game that's like new to me.
For
Like
sure.
I've never not gotten burnt out. Like I cannot believe I'm still grinding it this deep in. Now I did take a break between 0.1 and 0.2 for about 2 to 3 weeks, and I'll probably do the same before 0.3. Uh, Maybe like a
It's
softer
important to
break this
cleanse.
time.
You got to
Hmm.
cleanse a little bit. You know what I mean? Come back into the next league with a bit of more of a fresh mindset, not like burnt out from the last one. You know what I mean? I think that's important.
Yeah.
Go out, touch some grass a little bit, do whatever, then come back into the next league. And like, I can, this is something that sort of makes me super empathetic towards the PoE1 community. Is that like, they've had that schedule really thrown off with the development of PoE2. And I can really understand their frustrations because I'm already getting sucked into this whole, I can't wait for the next season. I can't wait to sort of do that little bit of a break and then come back in like really like, good to go, really stoked to get into the game again. And so yeah, like my heart goes out to the homies who are like waiting for the PoE1 stuff. I know it's going to pop off soon, but yeah, it must have been a tough like whatever it's been, like 5-6 months or whatever, for them, sucks.
Yeah, I genuinely believe Jonathan when he said that if he could go back in time, he would never have taken the PoE1 team off of it. Um, I think like everyone can see that that wasn't the best thing. Despite what we wanted for PoE 2, it would have been better to delay PoE 2 6 months than to have done that. But hindsight's 2020. Like I don't, I genuinely also believe him when he says he thought the PoE 1 team would have been back on their game several months before. But this
Yeah.
game is huge, dude. So it's absolutely massive, and it's like I said, all my games were started off as supposed to be small projects, and they ended up being multi-year projects. I completely get like the overestimating of your or the underestimating of your scope and your timeline, rather.
Yeah, that's how Path of Exile 2 was even made, which is like, oh, we're gonna just like change Path of Exile 1 and do some updated character models, and then, or however you phrase it, and then over time they just sort of like continually added to it and added to it and added to it until it just became its own separate game. So, um, yeah, let's talk about first. Let's talk about the new update that's coming out. So, got those patch notes, not even the patch notes, just these sort of overview of point 2H. Was there anything that really like stuck out to you in terms of like stuff that you're like extremely excited for, or was it all just like sort of generally good stuff in your opinion?
I don't think the patch itself is what matters to me. It's the fact that the patch is happening at this cadence is what matters to me. Like it seems to me that GGG is stabilizing after moving the team back to PoE 1 and after all the holidays, because then they had Christmas and then they had another Easter Force holiday. It seems like they're finally starting to hit a rhythm with development that this is a good pattern. Like a patch every 2-ish weeks is something that we should be expecting with minor bug fixes every week, and that's what we've been getting I think like last month. So like the patch itself, like it had a bunch of cool stuff. I try not to buy into those too much. I can't like full read them. I have to glaze over it. I need the actual notes with all the details that tell me exactly what's coming and go. Like the cool uniques and stuff. That's awesome that we're getting in the middle of a league and all these changes. But like I can't get hyped until I see that stuff, but what gets me excited is this, like the fact that we're getting this patch and how amazing it just seems like it's all good stuff, right? This is what we should be like, this is what is expected of GGG and a good development team, right? In these early access games is these patches that make sense, and feel like they're finally hitting a cadence that like they're in their flow now, and that's what excites me more than the patch itself, is that we're going to get, I assume we're going to get more of these until 0.3, and then once 3.26 is out, we're going to start getting those teasers, and like we're heading towards like a cycle that we'll all enjoy.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It really feels like they're sort of falling into that like rhythm, as you mentioned. And it is pretty astonishing. I'm still such a new player in terms of like the general scheme of Path of Exile and grinding your games. But I'm so used to the way that like other developers would introduce stuff like this. And it really seems like, to introduce this much new stuff into the game mid league is something that like no other real like ARPG developer would really do. Like I just can't believe it. It just like it seems like that amount of content and that those amount of things would be what Blizzard saves for their like their next season. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're gonna do a bunch of uniques. We're gonna do a bunch of new crafting stuff. We're gonna rework all the end game systems. Blah blah blah. But like GGG is like bonk. Like here you go, mid Dawn of the Hunt, and yeah, it's just fascinating for me.
Yeah, I think it's just been a learning curve for them to like they've had a pattern of development process in PoE 1 for 10 years now, and they tried to slide that over to PoE 2 even in its early access launch, and it did not like they immediately floundered with it, and I think they're now like starting to treat it like a real early access game. Like obviously in the middle of a real league, you would never drop uniques like this. That's insane. That's horrible for the economy, right? Who cares about the economy? Who cares right now? Like we're here to test stuff. Like these things are exciting for us now, and they're finally starting to realize what needs to be added to these early access patches. Like there are things that they're from their old habits that they would avoid doing that is okay in this current environment, and they're starting to realize that.
Absolutely, and I love that. I mean, like, I play primarily SSF, and so, even the loot improvement patch was just so, like, damn needed and necessary, and it was nice. They knew it was going to tank the trade economy. I found more divines in one day than I found in the previous month of grinding, you know what I mean? But it just made SSF feel so much better to play. I was never Exalt starved. I had all these, bases and items that I was waiting to sort of roll, and now it's just like I'm not afraid to like spend currency and stuff like that, or use a couple divines here and there on some items that I have. So yeah, it's great
Cool.
that they're treating early access like an early access, which is what you love to see.
Yeah, it took them a while to get here, but I understand why. Yeah. There's never been a game made like PoE 1, and there's never been a game made like PoE 2, and they were made very differently. So they're like having to relearn stuff all the time, and yeah, they're gonna have a lot of bumps along the way. But I think if like 0.2 launched with this patch, like I could be wrong, but I feel like like maybe the doomers are always going to be dooming, but I feel like the reception would have been completely differently. Like we had this balance. Like yes, Lightning Spear is a little over the top, but the game's still very playable, and the loot's in a fantastic spot, especially with the patch coming up where they're going to make us not see hit. Did you see that hidden Grotto stat, dude? I hate that map as a Thorns player. That boss is the worst Thorns boss, and seeing that stat, like I knew it was a lot of hidden Grotto, but that much was 150,000 out of 400,000. Like that is insane. That's just too much hidden Grotto. So if this next upcoming patch was the release for the 0.2 launch, I feel like the reception would have been like completely different.
I think you're 100% on point. I think that, the point two launch, obviously, like it introduced a lot of, balance changes, skill changes, and stuff like that, but it didn't really follow up with a lot of positive changes, things that would impact the player on a fun level. And so by doing all of these, new uniques, new crafting, side note, it almost feels like I don't know, like they're reading my mind because I'm just thinking like, I have an issue with, volatile plants. Like you just died on my hunters a couple days ago to volatile plants, just got two-shotted, level 87. And I was thinking, why do they do so much damage and why do they follow you around for so long? It just seems like a bit odd that like their effect doesn't end like every other on-death effect ends at the end when a monster gets killed, basically. So, and then you see that statistic, those analytics that they're doing right now, it's actually incredible. Like they're looking at the issues that players are having, the hidden grotto thing. It's like, we're all thinking it. Why am I doing so much hidden grotto? It's it's an unfavorable layout. The boss is, does way too much physical damage, has so much armor and so much fire resistance. And it's just fascinating to see that they're very aware of like how the game is in its current state, which is very reassuring.
Yeah, it's like when people say this doesn't feel like an early access game and why do they release it this early if it's not ready? Like they just don't understand game development and player-driven data. The reason we released Castle Warriors early is because there was just too much to test. There's not enough things we could think of on our own. Like some people just don't think like you do, and they can come up with different solutions to problems and stuff. Like player-driven data is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, when it comes to balancing a game. And I don't know if they had that kind of analytics set up for 0.1. It seems odd that a lot of this is only just now being noticed. I'm guessing that on 0.2 is when they finally got like this tracking set up for these deaths. Cause I feel like these are all problems that 0.1 had, but but to me, like it just shows the importance of why they had to release an early access. Like there's so many different things to test, and data like this, it makes it clear what needs to be fixed. And having hundreds of thousands of players is what helps that. So I hope that just helps people realize why this is actually an early access game, despite how polished it feels. They're like, when you see stats like that and these wild balance changes where it's like, 54% of endgame deaths are from volatile plants, like you start to see why it's early access and why they need why they needed all these players.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no question about it. There's a lot of dials that need to be turned. There's a lot of sort of minor things that just need tweaking. And that's the point of early access, right? Is that it's giving, the company GGG the amount of testers that it needs in order to get all of these dials turned into like the appropriate level, basically. I don't know. It's an interesting point. I don't know if they would have had the infrastructure in place to complete all this analytics. I would imagine they had sort of the same stuff for Path of Exile 1 existing prior to Path of Exile 2's launch. So maybe they just didn't have enough data. And now that they finally had like whatever it is, like 4 months or up since December, they can sort of finally take a look at all of these statistics and really figure out where the problems lie. And I think moving forward, that's just going to be increased exponentially as like they really hone in on like little more things like that. I've heard them say in previous interviews, like, they have, a list of 100,000 things, and hopefully by the next league they have a list of like 10,000 things, and then hopefully by the next league they have 1,000 things. And so I really see sort of that very precise sort of way that they're going about things, really addressing the bigger stuff, and then it'll just be honed in over time, more and more and more.
Yeah, I think that's like it's why I love those developer interviews and why I'm such fans of them. Like I would love to get to talk to them one day and just like pick their brains, both as a PoE fan but as a game developer, because I love the way they think. Like again, that's just the best way to approach it. Like there's no way any internal team was going to be able to get the game perfect before launch. Like they had to have player-driven data, and I don't know. Like this is like the best example of an early access game I've seen. I think they are handling it as well as they could have. I think like obviously there were some road bumps or speed bumps along the way, but I think like in 10 years from now, no one is going to be talking about the 1 year of early access, right? Like it'll be a flash in the pan to what this game became.
Except for us, because we're gonna reminisce and be like, "Oh, remember when the game was like this, where you couldn't even see the rare monsters on the map when you were mapping, and you had to run around and just get lost and all that." We're gonna remember that, bro. We're gonna go through all that together. Don't worry. But yeah, it will be a flash in the pan, absolutely. So I wanted to check in with you. We're at an hour and a half right now on the stream. How you doing? How you feeling?
Good as long as you want.
All right, man. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. This is by no means the end. I would still love to continue talking with you, but this has just been a really great conversation so far. So I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I love doing these kind of things, so appreciate
For
you having me
sure.
on.
Absolutely, dude. It's been a great chat so far. So I wanted to get into a little bit of a spicy topic next. So you released a video. Path of Exile 2 has a creator problem, sort of vocalizing your opinions, your thoughts, your emotions. It definitely felt like a little bit of an emotional video that you put out. You've since sort of unlisted it, but I wanted to talk to you sort of about your inspiration for that video. Maybe if you could sort of explain a little bit more in terms of insights behind what really inspired you to sort of talk about that stuff.
Um, I think that I think the Path of Exile community itself suffers from, like, I feel like of any gaming community I've been a part of, people have enabled and accepted angry hate in the PoE community more than anywhere else I've seen. Like, I feel like it's just really bad. Like, I don't want to say that creators are constantly doing it, but like, there's never been any creator pushback. Like, if you were to ever push back versus these people, again, I'm talking about a very minor portion of the population, but like the really loud and angry ones that are just very rude and mean. There's never been any pushback from them, from PoE creators at all. In fact, it felt like they almost entertained them slightly. They don't encourage them, but they entertain them with these little bait remarks and stuff. Like, you've heard myself even say Diablo 4 bad, right? The only reason someone says like that is they're trying to get a reaction from a single group of people. That's why I'm trying to stop saying that, is because, like, when you're saying, like, there's just this audience that has existed in the PoE community that people have just kind of accepted that they're there and almost like entertain them to an extent. And I don't know if a lot of creators realize they're doing it or not. My hope with the video was to just try and convey a message that was like they don't have to be appeased to. It was like you should not, like, when you look at these creators' comment sections, it is full of just the most angry and rude comments. Even if like the creator they love is doing a positive Path of Exile video, like half the comments are like, "Bro, what are you like shilling about?" and stuff. Like, they leave these comments here, and then a lot of the time they'll like, again, the quote I use is like with the meaningful combat, right? Like, the only people that say that are like, when you say like meaningful combat or the vision, you're trying to get a bait out of that audience, right? And then that 30% of your comments are going to be these people who are going to only complain about PoE 2. And most of these creators are having fun playing PoE 2. Not all of them. Not all of them are. I'm not talking about all of them, but the ones that are enjoying PoE 2, they're almost putting on like a mask to like appease this audience, or not appease. It's just like they're entertaining them almost. It's just like they've accepted that this angry group has to exist, and they refuse to do anything about them. They don't purge them from their communities. They'll engage with them lightly. And I think that is just the wrong approach. I had the horrible approach with my video I got way too emotional, and I was almost attacking the people. Like, my message was to the creators, but I spent half the video attacking the people that I find are the problem, and that was not productive at all. Is why I unlisted it. Obviously, my verbiage was really bad in it too, but my main problem is just that I don't know if you feel the same thing too, but like there is just like this lingering negativity that surrounds the Path of Exile community, and nobody seems to talk about it like at all. It's just like pure like, yeah, it's there, nothing we can do about it. And then some people, they'll lean into it, and I think it should be the obvious. Like, you shouldn't have gone as far as I went to like full combat it, but we should be like not be like. If I was to introduce people to Path of Exile 2, I'd be like, but don't go to the Reddit. Don't listen to the comments. Just go play the game and have fun. Like, that's crazy. That there's this crowd of like I truly believe it's a minority that have just they become so loud and accepted, and no one is doing anything about them. I don't think there's needs to be something done about them, but you shouldn't be enabling them. And that was my message that was my message I was trying to give with that video, and I missed the mark.
I see. So I guess after basically putting it out there, listening to it, and you sort of said, I could probably have said this in a better way, but the same sort of message would have come across where you're saying, we don't need to sort of entertain I guess, gross negativity is how I would describe it. And, I'm, again, just to repeat myself, I'm quite new to the whole space of like Path of Exile space. And so I think my particular perspective has been, for the most part, pretty positive, honestly. Like, I've really loved the game, and I feel like right now it feels like for some reason it's just like not cool to talk about how much you like the game. It's cooler to talk about how much you hate the game or how much you think the game is bad. And yeah, I just don't really understand that. I think that, it should be cool to give positive and constructive criticism about a game that we really enjoy. And if you don't like the game, you can still give positive and constructive criticism to it in order to help it improve to become a game that you do enjoy. It's like sort of what Talkative Try said. You're just saying something is bad, or like what yourself said, saying something is bad isn't helping it get better. You're just vocalizing some negativity that doesn't really do anything. It's so, I think the message that I got from your video was really to, we can do better. We can sort of vocalize our opinions in a more constructive and positive way to help shape this game to be the best game that it can be. And I got that from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it was a bad video necessarily. It wasn't my proudest video. I probably could have left it up and it would have been okay. Most of the community's reaction was like 80% of it is still up there. People want to go watch it. You go to my community post, it's unlisted, but I have a community post where you can go look at it. It's like still up there. It's not like crazy. It's just I was just a little bit too aggro with the name calling. You can say these people deserve it or not, but it shouldn't have been there. If I wanted to like. There's nobody I'm going to convert with that video. All I do is get people who think like me on my side, right? It doesn't like, with that tone, anyone who is like on that side, they're not going to hear a word I said, and they're going to just be angrier. But if I had a different tone with it, maybe like 1% of that audience would have been like, oh, maybe I am wrong. But there was a 0% chance any of that audience was going to hear that and be like when someone's calling you a moron, you're not going to listen to that. So
100%. I hear you. I think that's some good like reflection, like self-reflection on that particular like topic. And in terms of like conflict resolution in general, like if if yourself and I were having a very heated debate right now and we started calling each other names, you would only hear that and you wouldn't actually hear the point that I'm trying to make, regardless of if I'm right or wrong or if you may agree with it or not. It's hard to sort of get to that point when you're like feeling attacked, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't like blame you for that. I think that, it's a passionate topic.
You
obviously.
See our comments, like in the comments in like try section, like it is like I used to be annoyed at the WoW comments I used to get. Like in that game, if you click a single spell, like when you're being lazy or eating food, like half the comments were about this idiot's a clicker, he suck. But like those comments are nothing compared to the angry, volatile hate you get from that section of the PoE community. It's just like you see a lot of creators right now where, like, even myself, I feel the need. If I were to do a feedback video, I would feel forced almost to put an entire section about negative feedback, because if it was only positive, your comment section would be like, even like these big creators, like I know for a fact they feel like they are forced to just be like, even if they like love the build they made, to like have these moments where like, but this game has its problems, because if they don't, like, even if they do, their comments are going to be filled with people like, I can't believe you're enjoying this game. Like, you're changed. You're a shill now. Like, I hate you. It's like so if you feel forced to lean into it as a creator, and it's just it's a really weird ecosystem right now. And I just think again, I truly believe that. I mean, you've been seeing some of the comments that are getting shared in our little Discord that we have, like, there are a lot of people who just don't ever comment, that are just finally like, after hearing our frustration from all of this, they're like, hey man, I never comment ever in 30 years on YouTube. I want you to know that these people are not the more like, they're like, you're seeing a lot of this happen right now across all of us creators. And it is like starting to open my eyes that I should just probably ignore that audience altogether. I should no longer engage with them. I should just be trying to put on the example I want for myself and the community, that it's not about positivity, it's about not being obnoxiously hateful. I guess is the right word to point it. I don't even know what the right word is to phrase it is. It's just like, if the game starts to suck, if GGG starts to make mistakes that I violently disagree with, I'm going to always voice that, right? But I'm going to voice it in a way that, like, is digestible, mature, and if it ever gets to the point where I stop enjoying PoE2, guess what? I'm going to stop playing it. I'm not going to shill it forever. Like, it's not... Like, GGG, you know how much money GGG has given me? $0, and I'm probably ever going to make $0 from them. Like, they don't pay you anything. Like, that's not how this works. Like... It's a collaboration with these creators and stuff, you know? Like, when they showcased my build, right? Like, they didn't, like, hey, thanks for doing the Arctic armor, here's $10,000 for making it. Like, that's not how this works, you know? There's no, like, we're both appreciative of each other, and you have to be able, you have to be show that at times. Like, if you're playing the game this much, there's aspects of it you're liking. And expressing that enjoyment is not shilling. That is just you being honest. Like, you wouldn't be playing it this much if you didn't like it.
Absolutely.
So.
I think like that's what gaming has always been about for me, it's been fun. That's why I love to do it. It's just pure good old fashioned fun, and that's why we've been doing it for so long, and that's why we've been playing so many games. And you know, there's an interesting quote that Josh Strife Hayes said about how when you get really invested into a video game, you sort of create this relationship with that game to the point where it becomes part of your identity. And so what I think we're seeing a lot of, especially in the PoE and PoE2 community, is that because PoE1 is part of a lot of the player base's identity, whenever it takes a hit, or it gets they feel like it's being neglected or something like that, they feel like they're being attacked, they're being personally affected in a negative way. And so I think that PoE2 being sort of a catalyst for maybe that like level of neglect for that particular game, it has a lot of people feeling personally like invalidated, personally attacked. And I think that's a very dangerous way to think about particular games. Like, yes, you should love the game you're playing. If you're playing it, you should have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, don't play it anymore. But when you start to associate a game with your personal identity, and then that game sort of can shift or change, you feel like yourself, you're getting you're attached to that shift, basically. And so it can be potentially dangerous.
Yeah, it's very odd. I use the term parasocial. I come from WoW, and a lot of the reason why I don't have a community Discord is WoW viewers end up becoming very, very parasocial with the streamers, because streamers are streaming personal content for like 10 to 12 hours a day in that game, right? You're like, they're hanging out with guildies, you know, you're seeing them act like a real person and stuff. I've always thought MMOs had the most parasocial audience, just because of how connected those viewers end up getting with. Because, like, if you're streaming MMOs, it's almost like you're an IRL streamer at times. Like, it's very personal and like very community driven and stuff. But for PoE, like, they definitely do have parasocial relationships with the streamers, but I've never seen a community have a parasocial relationship like this with the game itself. Like, I would never say that WoW players are parasocial with WoW itself. WoW players hate WoW. The WoW players do not like WoW most of the time. Like, but like the development, the relationship that PoE players have with PoE one, these like specific ones rather. God, I hate saying it that way. I got to find a better way to phrase that, but it feels very much like a parasocial relationship with both Path of Exile 1 and GGG. And it's because, again, GGG has been this pinnacle of game development for so long, and they had a cadence like you're talking about where it's just like you had these leagues every several weeks or every several months, and like on a cadence, like it became a part of who they are, it's part of their identity. And I get that there are so many things of my passions that are part of my identity from my childhood to different games, like that's just like that's just how a lot of, like, especially people who get deep into gaming circles, that's just like how a lot of us, like, it just imprints onto us. It becomes part of who we are, and I definitely get that. But it is more extreme with this PoE audience than I've ever seen in any community. It's very, it's weird. I don't know what else to put it. It's different. It's different. Like, because I used to really believe that, like, MMO players, like Final Fantasy 14 WoW players, they were potentially the most parasocial of the player base. But I think PoE 1 players are parasocial in the same, but also a very different way.
Yeah, I even asked that question today when something got brought up where I was like, is it this way in every single video game community? Because I can't think of a single community that I've been a part of, and I've been a part of a lot. I've been gaming a lot. I played a lot of toxic games. Like, I dipped my toes in Dota 2 for 2,000 hours. I played 5,000 hours of Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike Source and Go and Counter-Strike 2 and Rust, and it just feels like every community that I've dipped my toes into, or really sunk my whole body into for that matter, it feels a little bit different with ARPGs and specifically with Path of Exile, and I think it's quite fascinating actually in terms of the passion.
I mean, it just shows why GGG is such a good company. I mean, they made such a fantastic game, number one, that they just, I don't know. People had certain expectations. They had certain wants. It's tough, man. Like, part of me wants to, like, semi-empathize with them. Like, I empathize with the people who are like, yeah, this sucks. I'm really upset that PoE 1 still doesn't have a league. Like, if you say it like that, I empathize with you. I agree 1,000%. I played PoE 1. I'm excited for 3.26 now. It wasn't a couple weeks ago, but now I'm actually starting to get hyped for it. I'm probably playing it and going to go with a serious attempt. Like, I like PoE 1 too, so I'm upset it's gone too, but it's like, there's a level of, like, weird hate where, like, Jonathan is the same person who has made lots of what PoE 1 is amazing. Like, he is not the person that these people are making him out to be with PoE 2. It's the same guy. Chris Wilson wasn't, like, the only developer making PoE 1, and there were times in PoE 1's development cycle where Chris Wilson was violently hated and Jonathan was praised. Like, there's no other word I can use besides parasocial and weird to me when you're, like, that violently angry. Like, again, if you're like one of the normal people, I'm not talking to you. Please don't be offended by what I'm saying. I shouldn't say normal, but, like, you should be upset because GGG's upset too. Jonathan said he would go back in time. He would fix it if he could. He made a mistake, but the level of hate and volatility is just, it's so weird to see them love PoE 1 so much, but then hate the exact same people that are making it and trying to bring it back.
It feels like sort of to build on what you're talking about is, like, there is this sort of, like, as we mentioned, cycle that people sort of get so used to that it becomes part of their personality. But you think that people would have sort of more empathy and more understanding for the company that's given them so much entertainment, so much fun, so much value over a decade plus, to let it slide a little bit. Like, let these guys sort of figure out what they're doing with a second product. I mean, it's very understandable from my perspective that things happen the way they did. I would, if someone would have told me, oh, Path of Exile 1 is going to take a hit when Path of Exile 2 comes out, it's just them with their growing pains figuring out how to develop two games instead of one. Of course, every company, I can't even imagine what that would be like from a game development side of things, but I'm sure that it's very, very, very difficult to do. And doing that flawlessly, I can't think of a single company that's done that flawlessly, honestly. Maybe OG Blizzard back in the day, but they weren't making like super intense multiplayer games with insane amounts of like complexity and mechanics. So I
Not
just
live service like this.
exactly. So I mean, like, part of me is understanding and empathetic towards the whole situation, but at the same time, I'm also very understanding and empathetic towards GGG situation. Like, it must just be incredibly challenging from a game design perspective to really sort of like feel that like anger and frustration and negativity from the community that like has held them and does hold them in such high regard for so long as well.
Yeah, my problem is the people that like. There's a level of entitlement that some of them have. Like, I get feeling hurt and stuff, but like some of these people think that them buying supporter packs was them buying like the right to decide how PoE 2 is developed and stuff. Like, I know some of them feel like PoE 2 like isn't the like. I'm not talking about the people who are sad that PoE 1 isn't bad or isn't like back. Like, anyone who's upset that PoE 1 hasn't gotten a patch in this long, you are justified. But the people who are angry that PoE 2 isn't what you paid for, those are the weird people I'm talking about. The people who feel entitled that, like, you weren't, like, if these people think that they were buying the supporter packs, they are, like, part of shareholders now, and they get to determine how PoE 2 is being made, instead of what the supporter packs actually were, which were a thank you for everything you've made so far. It had nothing to do with paying something forward. It was like, I love this game and everything you've done, thanks. It had nothing to do with, like, if you actually believe that your investment into this company's supporter packs and financially over time meant that they had to develop PoE 2 for your wants and needs without even actually sitting in a room with you, or like there's a level of an entitlement that I refuse. Like, again, the people who are upset that the patch hasn't happened in a while, that's justified. If you feel like you've been lied to by GGG with the PoE 2's development process and that you are owed something by them, that is, I cannot empathize with that even 1%. That's the people I'm talking about, is the people, I guess the word I should be using is the entitled ones. The ones that think that GGG owes them, when it's been a two-way street the whole time. You're enjoying the game they want. This free-to-play game. Like, there is no, like, yes, as a corporation, as a company, you're obviously beholden to, like, your consumers, right? Like, you can't survive without them, but it's a level of entitlement that, like, GGG has wronged me here. Like, I gave them all of this money that, like, that's where I cannot relate with those comments. Those it's a very small minority. Again, if, like, I think there might be a majority of people who are upset that PoE 1 hasn't been updated, right? I'm not talking about them. You're fine.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely understand you, and I definitely feel very much in the same boat as you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And it's sort of tying back to what we spoke about earlier, just as an objective perspective, this early access release has got to be, and I've played a lot. I've played probably like over 24 or more early access releases. This has by far been the best early access game I have ever played. Early access has a stigma in the video game development industry and in the gaming sphere as a whole, where you don't really know what you're going to get. You can see sort of what's listed on the Steam page, but you don't know if these devs are actually going to care about the game enough after they get the bag from their early access price tag, and then they just fuck off for a month or a year or whatever. Like, you don't know that. And so, like, by playing a bunch of these early access games, I've sort of accumulated this sort of perspective about how good or bad certain early access launches are. And, you know, you go from one game that's like hasn't been touched in like months and months and months, no communication, no updates, no cadence whatsoever. And then you go to Path of Exile 2, which, yes, it hasn't held up to some people's perspectives, and they may be entitled in terms of their views, but objectively, this early access launch is fucking amazing. It's so good, like, comparatively to the like 95% of any other early access game.
Yeah, I think most early access games are like my game Castle Warriors, which are like you're a studio who is underdeveloped and underfunded, and you're hoping to get some form of payout to eventually reinvest into the game, or it's a marketing tool where you're just trying to like promote the game before a full launch to make as much money as possible or something. It's very rare that, and I think like the smart way is to use it as both. But it's just such a hard landscape to navigate because like the development process is just so wild and stuff. It's hard. It's hard to for me to like just be like a lot of people are just using it wrong because I'll think again from my experience we went in with one intention and we weren't able to like navigate the rough development waters, right? But there are very clear examples of ones that can. Like if you look at early access of Rust, right? Rust is a game that if you go back to that very first build of Rust, it was very fun for its time, but compared to what Rust is now, it is a completely unrecognizable game, right? That is a good example of an early access game that used it for a very unfinished product. They got the money they need to reinvest into the game, and now it is something that they've been developing for 10 plus years, and now it is like a phenomenon, right? Like that is a good example of an early access game, and I think a lot of people
100%.
do honestly try to do that, and it just doesn't work out either due to lack of skill or lack of funding or whatever. But I think a lot of the sour taste from early access games comes from the ones who are clearly lying, right? They know their game's not going to be finished. They know their games are bad. They're manipulating footage. Or they're just doing it as a way to make early money to show off the shareholders and stuff. And I feel like that's about 50% of the early access games you get. So
precisely,
it's not all malicious, but there's definitely some maliciousness there. But I think a lot of it is also just it's so hard. It's so hard to navigate. But I think this one again is like you said, a good example of an early access game that like. It needed its bones set up, and the bones are there. The bones are there, but it's got so much more it has to develop from here that, it really feels like an early access game, and I agree, it's the best early access I've ever played.
100%. And I love that you brought up Rust because, you said you had a midlife crisis during COVID. Rust was my midlife crisis during COVID. I logged into that game and I didn't log out for a long, long time. And it's fascinating. I think that Face Punch has done a tremendous job at sort of leveling up that game over time and really utilizing that early access for what it's meant to do. Fund the game. If it needs monetary funding, and then provide valuable player feedback, and that's all we signed up for with early access. That's literally it, is to help produce a better game and to help the developers acquire the resources that they need to create the best game possible as well. But yeah, I'm not saying personally that I think that all early access games are like a scam or anything like that. I can totally understand that like there are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes in terms of the game development as a studio. Maybe as you said, they lack talent or just things just don't work out in early access. Some titles just become duds. There are games like The Day Before, like remember that game that came out? Complete absolute scam. Like said it was going to be an MMORPG, zombie, all that kind of stuff, and then released, and it was like the most bare bones UE5 asset flip you could ever see, basically. So there's an entire spectrum of early access essentially, and we can't let like certain things like The Day Before necessarily taint our like perspective on like the beauty that 100%. And that's the thing, right? Like there will always be that underlying sort of like worry, like, oh, is this actually going to be like a finished product, or how are they going to go about it? You're kind of going into the unknown with early access games. But I think that right now it just seems like it's one of the more successful ways to complete a game properly. Like, you don't see very many games like the Baldur's Gate 3 that just come out, or the Elden Rings that just come out complete, done bangers. And
Baldur's Gate 3 was in early access for 3 years.
True.
Only Act 1, but it was in EA for a very long time.
Right. I forgot about that.
But Elden Ring, no, they don't do early access. So
yeah, FromSoft, also goated company. But yeah, it seems like more and more of a rarity these days where games just don't come out as like complete and finished and beautiful products. Just the way that it is these days, I guess.
It's hard, man. It's so tough. And then again, like I talked earlier about how like I wouldn't take money. Like if someone offered me enough money, like I don't know that I would say no, right? But like I've left a sour taste in my mouth for early access because of Castle Warriors. Like Card Quest could benefit a lot from early access because the game is finished, but we want to replace the art. But to me, I feel like if you're going into early access, if the reason you're going into early access is because you need money to fix the game, you don't go into early access. You should be going into the early access because you're looking for feedback on the game to make it better. You should expect to, in my opinion, if you're releasing a game in early access, you should expect to make $0 from this early access. You should be looking to fix your game in it. And I think a lot of people do go into it with the expectation of, we need early access to be successful or we can't finish the game. If you are doing that, that is bad. That is a problem because you cannot guarantee early access success, and then you are just letting yourself and your potential fans down. You should be going into early access with the hope of that happening, but you should be confident that you can release the game as is with no money gained from early access. And if you can't, don't release an early access. That's at least my personal belief, because like there's no guarantee your early access is going to make money, and that's how you run into those situations you just talked about, where you just like people feel rug pulled, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing your sort of insights in terms of the game development side of things. This has been super helpful for me, sort of understanding a little bit more about what goes beyond this,
I'm still a newbie, so I'm still a newbie. I own my own company. It's not like I work for some AAA company. I did have some involvement with Blizzard and stuff. I used to actually do like freelance work for Amazon games too, but
yeah,
I'm not like a seasoned expert, but
no, but I think that you having that, I think that you having that experience sort of helps you understand sort of all the intricacies and the nuances of these things that we love to talk about. And sometimes it feels a little too easy to criticize or say something without knowing all of the inner workings of how these things go down. So I think it's good to be, educated as much as possible. So with that in mind, I'd sort of love to close out here with sort of what I would actually love for you to give some just some advice, maybe if any viewers or any listeners are here and are thinking about getting into game development. Do you have any sort of things that you'd love to share with them? Maybe some wisdom that you could have said, I wish I knew that before I got into this sort of industry.
I think that when you get into game development, you're going to hear a lot of people tell you of ways things should be done, shouldn't be done, things to avoid, things to not avoid. What's most important is you are chasing what you want to be doing in that moment. All that matters is you are passionate and having fun. There are going to be a lot of people that say, do game jams, which I agree you should do game jams. There are going to be some people who say your first project you should spend a day on, and then your second project you should be a week on. Some people are going to tell you to not do certain engines, not do certain game types, not do certain things with certain stuff. And they're all going to be trying to be helpful. I would be trying to do the same if I was doing that right now. But for me, what's been most important is doing what I want to do. That's it. You should not be doing something someone else told you to do if you do not want to do it. Find what you're excited about with game development, and then just truly chase that. Don't let anyone tell you that the genre you're making isn't going to work. Every single day, a new game. There's a super popular 3D sim we were talking about earlier that's about being a drug dealer. Like, what? Why is this game popping off on Steam right now? Because it's super well made, right? There's so many games out there that's just a concept that's like, why is this suddenly made this one developer millions of dollars? It's because the person that made it was passionate about what they were making, and they gave it their all. And you won't be able to do that if you're listening to advice from people and you don't fully buy into what they're saying. So just don't be afraid to start trying. Every single one of your games you make is going to suck. All of my games suck. I hate them all. But I'm trying my best with each of them. And they're games I'm passionate about. Like they may not be my dream game, but I want to be involved in all of them. So just make sure you're wanting to do what you're doing from moment to moment. There's going to be lots of work. There's going to be lots of headaches and like moments where you want to cry and give up. But as long as it's something you're wanting to do, you will keep doing it.
I love that. That is just that aligns so much with sort of my perspective on what I do as well. I think that I'm very lucky that I'm able to have a career doing something that I'm passionate about, but I had to actively choose to do that over getting paid well in something else that I didn't actually want to do. And so I love the advice there. Really make sure that you're happy and passionate about whatever you're doing in life, and you will become way better at it because you love to do it, and people will end up paying you more because you get so good at it as well because you love to do it. So it really all falls back to like finding that passion, finding that love for something, and really sticking to it. And don't let people tell you what the fuck to do. If you want to do something your way, do it your way. Especially if that's the way you love to do it. Don't take the L just because someone else told you not to, right? So that's fantastic, man.
Carve your own path. Listen to the advice of others. Listen to as much advice as you possibly can, but carve your own path. Stardew Valley, so many games have been carved by their own path, and those people are probably some of the happiest people in the world right now. You know, they did what they wanted to, and it paid off. And it may not work for you. Like I said, I'm on my third game right now, and it might not be the one either. But every step of the journey, despite all the headaches, is like I'm learning, and I don't regret any of it. And it's because there's nothing did that I didn't want to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're still enjoying it and still loving it to this day. So,
oh yeah,
there you go.
I will never call myself a YouTuber. YouTuber's a hobby. Even if let's say my YouTube's making way more money than game development does, my career and path in life is game development. And if that's where you feel like your career and path is, then just start. Just start. We've been operating on 3 years with no money. There's so many tools online. There's so many packages you can use online that make this process simpler. There's so many YouTube videos to follow. Like it is difficult to get into to be successful because it's such a learning curve, but is as accessible as it can be right now.
Absolutely. I think that's the hardest thing for anybody to do for anything is just get started. You really push yourself, guys, to just like go out there. It's like what Kaltorak said. It's probably going to be not the greatest. Obviously, anything you do for the first time is not going to be incredible at all. But don't beat yourself up about that. Just get your toes dipped in, and it's gonna, you're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it, and just keep on trucking. That's kind of what I did with the YouTube stuff. I just decided one day, I love Path of Exile too. I just want to make a YouTube channel about it, and it's been a blast so far, man. For these last like 4 months or so.
Look at you, like you're already interviewing people like Try and stuff like. That just if you're passionate about something, man, stop letting the naysayers keep you down. Just it sounds cheesy, but life's too short to be like questioning these things too much. Like I would rather fail as a game developer than wonder if I could have been a game developer, And I'm sure you would have rather failed to be a YouTuber than wondered if I should have ever tried that.
Absolutely.
So if you're out there and you want to try something, just do it, man. Don't stop yourself. You're stopping yourself more than the haters, that's for sure.
100%, man. I love that. All right, so at this point in the podcast, it's been about 2 hours now. We are going to ask, or I'm going to ask Kaltorak to shout yourself out. Where can we find you, and what are you working on?
Just follow me on YouTube. I stream on Twitch and YouTube, but I mainly just make YouTube videos. So if you want to just keep up to date with me, just it's YouTube. Is it Kaltorak or Cal? I don't even know the name of my own YouTube channel. It's Kaltorak. So yeah, just YouTube Kaltorak. That's where I put most of my efforts into right now. I really enjoy just the video editing aspect of this content creation game, and yeah, that's the best way to follow me. If you want to support me, head over to our Steam page for Card Quest. Give it a wish list. You don't ever have to actually buy the game. Wish lists on Steam are like likings and subscribing on YouTube or commenting and stuff. It's like it pushes the algorithm. So whenever Card Quest launches, the more wish lists we have, the better odds we have of like gaining traction in the algorithm and stuff. So if you want to like seriously support me, just wish list my game.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I will make sure to put the Card Quest link in the description of this video. And if I can find the Castle Warriors link as well, I'll put that in along with your YouTube channel, of course. So guys, if you're interested in anything that Kaltorak is working on, check out the links in the description of the video. Thank you so much for this chat, bro. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to future chats with you down the road, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good night. All right, everybody. That wraps it up for this episode of the Passive Tree Podcast. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe for more PoE 2 content. I have a bunch more episodes of the podcast lined up with some really great guests, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And until next time, happy blasting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.